The following video is a non-profit fan-made video. All the rights belong to Konami, TV Tokyo, and Nihon Ad Systems. I encourage you to follow me on my secondary channel, Yu-Gi-Oh! Everything, where I will be posting Yu-Gi-Oh! Q&As, Yu-Gi-Oh! Podcasts, Yu-Gi-Oh! Spoiler analysis, and more. Link is in the description. Hello everyone, it is Dylan from Yu-Gi-Oh! Everything, or Clueless Gamers, and welcome back to another Yu-Gi-Oh! Arc 5 review. I will be reviewing episode 134. I really hope you guys enjoy.
その怒りとパワー、君と一つになれば、それも僕のものってことだよね。許さない。父さんをカードに。待て、浮かずに有利に近づくな。絶対に許さない。このカードが欲しいんだろ？じゃあ僕と戦いなよ。デュエルでさ。ああ！やってやる。
A duel that I have been anticipating for so long, and of course we got a 2-week break between 133 and 134, which just kind of increased the hype to some extent, and I have to say, this was maybe the most intense episode of Yu-Gi-Oh! Arc 5 in my opinion. It's the most intense episode I've watched in a long time, where I literally was on edge the entire time this episode was going on. And first of all, huge props to Ono, who is the voice actor of Yuya and Yuri. He voice acts for both of them, and I can't imagine how how tough it must have been to record for this episode, because it's really him 90% of the dialogue, and between the screaming and the yelling and the high-pitched yelling and the, you know, the demonic screaming, I'm sure his vocal cords were absolutely shot, and I'm glad that it took 2 weeks. I know it's not like he recorded it during the time they had off. I mean, these episodes are recorded months and months in advance, but my goodness, I mean, I felt bad for the guy. He had my respect before, and he has my utmost respect now as a voice actor. Really, really incredible job by him. As for the episode, you know, it was intense. It was intense. It starts out with Yuri basically saying, I'll give you your dad back if you defeat me in a duel. And so they duel, and immediately Yuri summons Star Venom. In terms of dialogue, this was a pretty low episode. There wasn't much dialogue exchanged. You had some comments made by Reiji and Rara. You had Leo, and we know Leo confirms the transformation of Serena, so the last bracelet girl is killed off, which, by the way, I'm just going to touch on that really quickly. Just like the situation with Ruri, the people that were, you know, the experts that were like, we can't transfer Serena yet, they said the same about Ruri, that we don't have enough energy, we shouldn't do it yet, and Akabaleo said, we don't have time, do it now, I don't care. I'm telling you, I really think there are going to be repercussions from this, especially now. They didn't do it when they did Yuzu and Rin's transfer, but now that they've made notice of it twice, it could be just that they want to make it well known that they have to revive Rei before Zark is revived, otherwise, it almost like giving us a sense of desperation as a viewer, or they're trying to maybe foreshadow for something worse. Now, I did a podcast with Forte, Xezon, and Rarity Fangirl over on Yu-Gi-Oh! Everything. If you want to check that out, I'll link that down below. And Forte made notice that he doesn't think, and I don't think either, they'll do something where Rei is like deformed, some really gross deformation because of the rushed transfer, if there is any effect. But what I think could very well happen is Rei is notably weaker because she didn't have the full effects of the transformation and Leo rushed it, where maybe in the middle of Rei's duel with Zark, she gets lightheaded, she isn't thinking straight, she isn't thinking clearly, she's not thinking good strategy, or she just passes out maybe in the middle of the duel. I think there are going to be some negative repercussions to this. That's just my thought. You guys let me know if you agree with me or disagree with me down below. I just think it's interesting that, again, Akabaleo and the writers purposely made notice that, you know, they're telling Leo, we're not supposed to do it yet, but Leo is saying, do it anyway. I just feel like there are definitely going to be repercussions, but that's just my opinion on that. We go back to the duel, and Yuya is really fighting himself here. He's really fighting himself. Almost it's like a part of him doesn't want to summon Odd Eyes, but he kind of figures that he has to anyway, so he summons Odd Eyes, and he's able to withhold the evil force within him. Yuri uses a trap, they go back and forth a little bit, none of the dragons get destroyed, and then Yuri summons Clearwing, and this was great. I thought this was something the episode did well. You can see on screen right here, when Yuri says Synchro Summon, you can see Zark, right? This is the only time we saw this kind of silhouette, at least in this particular episode, but it looks like that is Zark, or it's the evil entity controlling Yuri when he summons Clearwing. I like that a lot. I really enjoyed that they did that. I wish they did that a little more. And every time the 3 or 4 dragons are on the field, Yuri just is yelling, amazing, amazing. And I gotta tell you, Yuri, the one thing that he lacked, and comparing him to Vector and maybe some other villains, was like the crazy faces and just the pure thirst for evil. If he lacked it, he got there in this episode. My goodness, he got there. Yuri is just absolutely insane, and we saw it in this episode. And for a show that has kind of lacked, I think, really good and evil villains, this was something that Arc 5 needed, and this was an episode that, and it's why it keeps you on the edge of your seat, because Yuri, you realize how insane he is, and you realize this probably isn't even the peak of his insanity. This is probably Zark. We can't even really say if it's Yuri confirmed. The reason I don't think Yuri is suffering when the dragons are on the field like Yuya and Yuto were is because I think Yuri has accepted the darkness. We don't even see if Yugo is in pain or not, but Yuri has completely accepted the darkness, and that's why he's not in pain like Yuya and Yuto, who are trying to fight off the darkness. But again, this isn't the peak, or at least we don't think it's the peak, because when Yuya and Yuto become one with Yuri, which we assume will happen when Zark gets revived, Zark is the peak. So if Yuri is this evil with just him, Zark, and Yugo, imagine how twisted he's going to be when he possesses Yuto and Yuya and they become one, and imagine how OP he's going to be. I cannot wait. I really cannot wait. This episode hyped me up for that, but Yuri was insane. There was one part of the episode where his head tilts back, and it's almost like, I think that's what they do in like horror movies. I don't like horror movies, I don't watch horror movies, but I think it was The Exorcist that did that, where like the head completely tilts back, and The Exorcist, I haven't even seen it, but I just know how, messed up that movie is on screen, and the things that happen to the cast in that movie in real life as well. I do not mess with horror movies, but I think that was the kind of resemblance and the symbolism that the show was going for when they made Yuri's head snap back like that, which just gave me chills. I mean, they really made it. They really wrote this episode so well, I thought, where the dialogue was minimal. I thought the screaming was a little overdone, but one of my friends on Twitter did point out that, how would you react if your body was starting to be consumed by darkness? And it's like, yeah, that's very true. I probably wouldn't be in the most comforting mood, so I guess I understand all the screaming. I thought it was a little overdone, but it definitely added to just the anxiousness that this episode produced. So Yuya and Yuto are kind of talking, and Yuto's like, you have to summon Dark Rebellion. That card will protect you. So Smile World. So Yuya does summon Dark Rebellion, and immediately you can see Yuto's body get engulfed in darkness. We saw that in the 134 preview at the end of 133, so we knew that scene was going to happen. His body gets engulfed. Yuya is fighting it off, and right when he's about to activate Dark Rebellion's effect, Yuri his head snaps forward again, and he has that Vector-esque face. It's not only that Vector-esque face, but the Vector mannerisms, because Vector would say things in really, weird and twisted voices, and Yuri matched him on that, and I think there was definitely some influence from Vector and Zexal to Yuri in Arc 5. I saw a lot of resemblance in that episode, which is a good thing, because I thought Vector was one of the best villains that Yu-Gi-Oh! In general has done. I mean, comparable to some Duel Monsters villains, which I still think the Duel Monsters villains are overall the best villains out of all the Yu-Gi-Oh! Shows collectively. I mean, you got Marek, Bakura, Pegasus. You have some really, really good villains in that show, but Vector was great in Zexal, and I think they kind of used that as an influence here in Yuri, which worked perfectly, I thought. So Yuri, again, his head snaps forward, he plays a trap, and he takes control of Dark Rebellion. So now it is 3 dragons versus Yuya's 1 dragon. He's got 2 cards in his hand, if I'm correct. I might not be correct. He might only have 1 card in his hand, which is Smile World. And that's how the episode ends. That's how the episode concludes. We know Yuri is saying we will become one. We see Yuto in Berserk and Yugo in Berserk. They're saying we will become one as well. And Yuya even says something like, oh no, not you too, Yuto. And that's it. And then we see Leo, and Leo's, the process begins. Serena gets transferred. She is confirmed right there to be killed off, and Rei is going to be born. Leo is watching the conclusion of the duel. Reira makes an interesting point to Reiji that Rei says Zark's revival is inevitable, and Leo makes an interesting statement where he says, no matter what happens after this duel, Zark will be revived. I like that statement a lot. Even if Yuya wins, Leo is acknowledging that Zark is going to be revived. So here's the thing. Everyone, including myself, probably a month ago thought Yuya was definitely going to win this. I still do think Yuya is going to win, don't get me wrong, and I want you guys to comment what you thought of this episode and what you think about this next topic down below. I love reading your comments, but how is Yuya going to win this? All he has is Smile World. We see in the preview that he uses an action card, and Yuri, because remember, Yuri is Zark, and Zark used action cards. Zark is an entertainment duelist. Yuri uses an action card that looks like cancels out Yuya's action card, so Yuya doesn't even have action cards to his benefit. All he has on his field in terms of dragons is Odd Eyes, while Yuri and yes, Star Venom's effect and Clearwing's effect are negated, but he also has Dark Rebellion, who still has his 2 overlay units. So I just don't understand. I can't think of a way that Yuya is going to win this duel. And I'm just kind of I think Yuya will win, but I don't know. All I'm saying is everyone really thought that, and still people are 100% convinced Yuya is going to win. I'm just going to say no one saw the Rin and Yugo upset coming when Rin defeated Yugo. And doesn't it just make more sense for Yuri to win, Yuya to be absorbed, and then maybe if Yuya does defeat Zark 10, 15 episodes later, Yuya makes a statement like, I was unable to save everyone and save myself before, but now I can make up for it, and maybe they're in like the original dimension, because it looks like the dimensional transfer, the dimensional merge, as Leo Akaba says, is going to be completed, or it's going to be beginning. So maybe Yuya will, use this defeat as a blueprint to defeat Zark. I don't know, and that's if Yuya loses. I mean, Yuri may very well lose, but then if Yuri loses, how does Yuya, who now you have to figure is out of Berserk mode, Yusho might be uncarded. I mean, who really knows? I don't think he will be, but who knows? How does Zark be born then? I just think it's much easier to have Yuri win, and then Zark is born. And then maybe down the road, Yuya... a scene that I did like, by the way, is that when Yuya was about to really go off the edge, the music stopped, and the music was all original OG songs, which I liked a lot. And you see all the characters that he's interacted with, and they all kind of just come in flashbacks. You even see Yuzu at the very end, and I like that a lot. I thought that was very well done. And his friends are going to be the one, and they are the one in this case, that kept him from being consumed by darkness. I just think it makes more sense for Yuri to win. I don't understand the events. Like, someone's got to help me understand it here. And, I'm sure it's very possible, and this is the route they'll go. Yuya wins, Yuri is defeated. Then how do you get from that to Zark being reborn and the U-Boys becoming one within one episode? I just think it's easier to write Yuri winning, but who knows? Who knows? I still think Yuya is going to win, but it's a lot closer than I even thought going into this episode. I think a lot of people felt Yuya was definitely going to win. A Yu-Gi-Oh! Protagonist has never lost this late in the show, so that's another thing, but it'll just be interesting to see what happens. It really, really will be. But you guys let me know down below. Let me know what you thought of this episode, and maybe if I missed a few points, and as I always do, and I love to hear what you guys have to say. I'm going to show you the preview for 135, and then we will wrap things up and send Serena, the last bracelet girl, properly off.
頼みのダークリベリオンもこっちに来ちゃったし、もう君にできることは何もないよね。サレンダーすれば。嫌だ、俺は絶対。さあ言うんだ、負けましたって。今こそ一つになろうって。今こそ一つに、今こそ一つに、今こそ一つに。次回遊戯王アーク5揺れ動く次元、お楽しみはこれからだ。
So, I have to say, Rarity and a few others told me that, I believe it's Ebina, I believe that's her last name, I apologize if I butchered it, she's the animator for the next episode, and she is the best animator that Arc 5 has, and the animation in this next episode looks absolutely beautiful, and considering this could be the last episode ever that we see the 4 U-Boys, I mean, depending on how Arc 5 ends, it will definitely be one of the last episodes, if you really think about it, that we will see all 4 U-Boys. The animation deserved to be beautiful, and it looks absolutely incredible in this preview. Yuri basically saying, you already lost, you might as well surrender. It looks like Yuya is walking towards Yuri, maybe conceding defeat as Yuri is kind of clapping, so maybe Yuya is going to surrender. I don't think he will, but I think it's interesting. We see Yuto and Yugo. Doesn't look like they're going to have too much of an influence, but who really knows? So anyway, guys, let me know what you think of the preview and the episode down below. I hope you enjoyed my review. But it is time to say farewell to the final bracelet girl of Yu-Gi-Oh! Arc 5. Serena was maybe my favorite Bracelet Girl for a majority of Arc 5. She's been my PlayStation profile picture for the last 6 months, true story. Just a character that I really, really enjoyed. A badass female character, and someone who really was the main protagonist, the main female protagonist for Yu-Gi-Oh! Arc 5 for a good 30-40 episodes, in my opinion, during the Synchro arc. And I thought had a more prominent role than Yuzu during that time. She got brainwashed towards the end of the series, which kind of took away all the aspects that I liked about her character, being an independent character, being someone who did not want to be confined to the Academia walls or fight on the Academia front lines, just someone who would not take no for an answer. She realizes Academia's error early on. She saved another one of my favorite characters, Kurosaki Shun, and without her, Kurosaki Shun probably is a goner. Well, she didn't have a relationship with Yuri, and she was the only Bracelet Girl that didn't really rely on a relationship with a U-Boy. I thought that kind of made her a stronger character in a sense, because again, it just emphasized how independent of a character she was, which is a rare trait in females in Yu-Gi-Oh! She deserves so much more, as pretty much every Bracelet Girl did. The final Bracelet Girl, the final Bracelet Girl farewell. Serena, you will be missed by the Yu-Gi-Oh! Community. May you rest in peace. Hello everyone, it is Dylan from Yu-Gi-Oh! Everything, back with another quick discussion video. This will probably be my last formal discussion video, probably my last formal video before we get some massive news this weekend at Jump Festa regarding, most likely, the new Yu-Gi-Oh! Anime. So I just wanted to make a formal discussion because so many things have come out, and so for the first half of this video I'm going to talk about Zark. Zark's effect as a monster has been released. I'm going to go over that, and I want to have a formal conversation with you guys in the comments below, so I hope you guys comment your thoughts as well. The second half of this video, I'm going to discuss rumors that are swirling around because the starter deck for 2017, which is going to be released March 25th, has been released, and usually the starter deck has the logo of the show that it's going to be about. For instance, Zexal had the Zexal logo, Arc 5 had the Arc 5 logo. Right now, the logo is the official Yu-Gi-Oh! Duel Monsters logo that was used throughout the original series and GX, so a lot of people, as you would imagine, are freaking out that maybe a Duel Monsters sequel, maybe a GX sequel is in the works. Could just be a placeholder, but I'll get into that towards the later half of this video. If you're more interested in that, I'll put it down below in the description what time I start talking about that, so you can skip right to that. But first we're going to talk about Zark. So Zark, he's overpowered, as we figured he would be. 4,000 attack, 4,000 defense, a Pendulum Scale 1 monster, level 12, Dark Dragon. And here are his Pendulum effects. Fusion, Synchro, and XZ's monsters your opponent controls cannot activate their effects. Once per turn, when your opponent adds a card to their hand outside of the draw phase, you can destroy that card. And its monster effect, you need one Fusion Dragon, one Synchro Dragon, one XZ's Dragon, one Pendulum Dragon. Kind of figured that was, actually we knew that was going to be the case. If this card is special summoned, destroy all cards your opponent controls. So then it can just have a nice easy 4,000 attack direct hit. Cannot be targeted or destroyed by an opponent's card effect When this card destroys a monster by battle, you can special summon one Supreme King Servant Dragon monster from your main deck or extra deck. If this card in your monster zone is destroyed by battle or card effect, you can place this in your Pendulum Zone. And just so you guys know, we did get a few more cards. We got Supreme King Servant Dragon, which is a level 4 dragon monster, and we have, what's very interesting, is a 13 Pendulum Scale Supreme King Gate Infinity. We also got a 0 Pendulum Scale Supreme King Gate 0. So I'm not going to read you the effects of those monsters. I'll link all this down, mainly because I don't play the card game, so I feel like people have a lot more knowledge than I do, so all I can really do is read it. So I'm not going to read you those effects, but I don't think we've ever I don't think there is, you guys let me know please, a Scale 0 or a Scale 13 Pendulum cards that existed before these two, so that is pretty insane. It looks like this whole style is going to be an archetype, so I want to ask you guys, because you guys know the card game better than I do, we knew Zark was going to be overpowered, we knew that, and the fact that he has so much additional support is going to make him a complete pain to take down. Who's more OP, do you think, based on these effects? Zone's Time Lords, Don Thousand's crazy chaos monsters, or Supreme King Dragon Zark's dragon and these monsters that go along with it? Which ones do you think is more overpowered? I ask you guys, the great people of the community, because you guys know so much more than I do, so I am going to ask you guys, and I'll talk to you guys in the comments below. Excited to hear what you guys have to say about that. Also, thank you to everyone who sent me this information, like 10 or 15 of you did, and it means so much to me that you guys want to hear my opinion about these things, and I want to hear your opinion about it too. And while Twitter is a good way to talk, due to the 140 character limit, and I'm barely on unless I'm actually making a physical tweet regarding something, I just feel like the YouTube comment section is the best way to do it. So these discussion videos might pop up more frequently when more kind of breaking news comes out, but this is definitely interesting news, and we're going to move on to the other piece of interesting news, and that is this image right here, Starter Deck 2017, one pre-constructed deck of 43 cards, one rulebook, one special dual field / starter guide, and then the person on Yu-Gi-Oh! Organization writes, the product is not using the moniker of a new series, but instead lists itself as being Yu-Gi-Oh! Official Card Game Duel Monsters, a label that was used back during the times of the original series and GX, as well as legacy products related to them. And then, you have the italics. This may or may not mean anything of importance. So naturally, a lot of people are freaking out that a Duel Monster sequel or a GX sequel could be in the works. Mainly a Duel Monster sequel. I haven't heard too many people discuss a GX sequel. But you know what? Here's the thing, and I went over this with Atemi Yu-Gi-Oh! On Twitter. They've kind of been dropping subtle hints at a GX sequel, if you really think about it. And let me explain. You have Supreme King Dragon Zark, which is the main, I guess going to be the main villainous card in this case. Supreme King is obviously a term used from the GX era back when Judai became the Supreme King. You have Yuri, who used super polymerization out of nowhere. I mean, really out of nowhere. And that obviously was an element that was used along with the Supreme King, in the Supreme King arc, I should say, in Yu-Gi-Oh! GX. And also, you have a 20th anniversary pack coming out, which Judai's voice actor is doing. Now, it's not uncommon for them to bring back old voice actors, but I think it's interesting that this is all kind of starting to come together, along with the pendulum scales. Infinity and Zero are the two pendulum scale names of the 13 and 0 Zark pendulum support. And those were also the trump cards of Darkness, the final villain in Yu-Gi-Oh! GX. Or not the trump cards, but the magic cards that he used, 0 to Infinity. So there's just a lot of interesting coincidences there. And I'm gonna say people I think are looking a little too much into it. We're gonna know for a fact in a couple days. So 2 or 3 days we will know what's going on here. It's funny because when I did my prequel sequels Road to Yu-Gi-Oh! 6 video, the only sequel I did not want to see was Duel Monsters. That was the only sequel I didn't want to see because I just felt that story was told, that story was over, and without a Tem, I don't know how interested I would be in it. I mean, I'd still watch it, obviously. But with Dark Side of Dimensions as well, I feel like that show has gotten so much love and support as it deserves to be because it's Duel Monsters. It's the original Yu-Gi-Oh! It's going to be forever the most popular and arguably well-made Yu-Gi-Oh! Series. But I am going to propose, if you're going to do one or the other, I would love to see a GX sequel so much more. I think GX, there's still a good amount to be desired. Or what about maybe a dual protagonist series where you follow Judai and Yugi? I mean, what do you guys make of this? What do you guys make of this? I do not think that they will do a Duel Monsters sequel. Maybe they will do something like a Yu-Gi-Oh! Generations where they follow a bunch of different characters from this time zone. Or the other thing, this is just a placeholder logo because they do not want anything to get spoiled. They do not want anything to get spoiled. It's also interesting to note that at this point, we usually, a week before, I did my research and we got Yuya's character design more than a few days before Jump Festa. We got Yuma's character design 6 years ago, more than a few days before Jump Festa. So maybe that's a sign that there is not going to be a new protagonist, and that just further enhances this sequel theory that we already know the protagonist looks, so why would they release it in a scan or something like this? Like, this seems like it would have been the time when we would have at least gotten the design. If you go by what happened the last 6 and 3 years with Zexal and Arc 5 respectively, we don't have any design. Now, is that cause for concern? It might be cause for concern if you look at it from the other end, that maybe there is not going to be a 6th series, or maybe they're going to just take a break for a couple years. Who really knows what the plan is? I hope that's not the case. What's interesting here is the release date is March 25th. That's usually when the current series ends, and the next week, the first week in April, is when the new series begins, so the timeline here makes perfect sense. Here's the thing, with a GX sequel, if you're a diehard Duel Monsters fan and you really want a Duel Monsters sequel, I think you could get on board with a GX sequel, and here's why. Because they can still use characters like Seto Kaiba, they can still use characters like Pegasus and Yugi, and use them in arcs now and then. Like, the Duel Monsters characters can still be utilized. You can also, with the GX sequel, what that could do is at the end of the GX, whatever the sequel's name is, I'll call it GX 2.0 for the sake of this discussion, you could finally fill in the timeline gap that they said they would explain so long ago that it has never been explained. And what I mean by that is you could show an event at the end of this GX 2.0 that splits the timelines into synchros and 5Ds and splits it to Zexal with XCs. I think that would be really cool. I think it would be an awesome way to end the series and kind of fill in a lot of questions that we as fans have about the timeline. If they're going to pick one or the other, I really hope they go with a GX sequel. And I'm not hating on Duel Monsters. I know a lot of people think I throw shade towards Duel Monsters. I really don't. But I would also want Takahashi to work on that series, because that's his series. He's the one who created that series. He's the one who created this whole thing. And I just don't think it would be right for him, unless he really wanted to give the Duel Monsters characters to another writer. You know what I mean? Especially when in recent memories the writers, well, at least with Arc 5, have gotten a lot of heat from some parts of the community. So I just don't know. I don't think Takahashi would be back to write a new show. I mean, if that's the case, they're very desperate. That's what it would tell me. But we'll see what happens, guys. It's going to be a crazy weekend. Besides Saturday night, I'm going to see Rogue One with a few friends. I'm going to be up probably 24/7 the entire weekend waiting for news to drop, and I'll try to get videos out as soon as I can when we get news. Hopefully we do get news, and it's not like they say, yeah, we're going to take a break for a little bit. I don't see that happening. Duel Monsters sequel, GX sequel looking more and more likely. Again, it could just be a placeholder because they don't want anything to be spoiled. But that to me it's hard for me to believe that, because going back 6 years to Zexal and 3 years to Arc 5, that wasn't the case. So why are they being so secretive about it now? Unless maybe it's going to relate to how Arc 5 ends, and maybe they'll continue with Arc 5, and that's why they don't want to show it. Because if they showed, let's say, Yuya or something, then we'd know that Arc 5 is going to end a certain way. So who knows? I mean, and that's just something I thought of there. Maybe this is trying to hide how Arc 5 is going to end, and it'll be an Arc 5 sequel. Who really knows? The thing is, don't look too much into it, because we are going to get information about it in the next 2 or 3 days, so don't stress about it. But you know me, I love to stress, I love to discuss about these kind of things. So please comment about Zark, comment about this information all down below. I will talk to you guys in the comment section. I hope you enjoyed the video. I hope you are excited for this weekend for a revelation announcement, hopefully about a 6th Yu-Gi-Oh series. I hope you have a great day, and I will see you guys next time. Thank you for watching.